Okay, 9:33 here in New York. I want to move back to the story in Russia because we're getting some new video that you're going to see in a moment here, which purports to be video of this drone strike on the Kremlin overnight. To catch you up to speed now, Russia is accusing Ukraine of attacking the Kremlin with 2 drones overnight. They believe they were intended to take out Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin says he was not there at the time. Moscow says it's a terrorist attack, and that Russian military and security forces disabled the drones before they could strike. Now, Dana, we were watching this video that our viewers will see momentarily during the break here, and one of the drones apparently hit a flagpole. So if that's how you disabled them, I'm not sure, but the video was shot from across the Moscow River from the walls of the Kremlin. There's been no comment yet from the Ukrainians. And, of course, we don't know if the Ukrainians did send the drone. This is what Moscow is saying. They're also saying that Vladimir Putin was not in residence there at the time that it happened. But nonetheless, the Russians are saying that this was an assassination attempt against Vladimir Putin. So more from this in London with Alex Hogan, who's tracking it from there. Alex, hello.
Hi, Bill and Dana. Obviously, a lot of reaction just within the last few minutes of what we're seeing coming out of not only Russia saying that they will reserve the right to retaliate, seeing this as an extreme threat. We have heard the first official statement start to come out from Ukraine with Mikhailo Podolyak. He is a senior advisor to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, and he said that Ukraine had nothing to do with this. And he says that it's simply a means for the Kremlin to justify a new attack on Ukraine. Now, it is worth noting in the last week, we have seen several changes. I was there in the last month, and we really saw a quiet environment in Kyiv. All of that started to change within the last 10 days, with Russia now launching more attacks, attempted attacks on the capital of Kyiv. Even just in the last couple of days, we've seen new attacks on civilian infrastructure, notably one outside of Dnipro, where at least 40 people were injured. But take a look at this video. This is the video that is likely going to create a lot of turmoil in what we might see in the coming days, especially with the counteroffensive. These are what are being known as unmanned aerial devices. These are drones, of course. Now, still no word from the Ukrainian government on who could be behind this. The Kremlin says that they are pointing all of this at Ukrainian forces. But the question is, how would a drone even get there given that distance? There's so many concerns around this. It's also worth noting just how crucial of a role drones are playing in this war right now. Ukraine in the last month or two has really ramped up the amount of drones that they're using. When we're talking about this war, of course, trench warfare is one of the main things that we are seeing. When I talk to Ukrainian forces on the front lines, a lot of their training goes into manning those trenches. But even more than that, right now, they are learning to use drone technology. And it's not always really advanced systems of drones. They're even using commercial drones that you and I could maybe buy at any kind of store. And they're using that for technology to survey the land on the front lines. But this video, of course, is likely what we're going to see more and more statements come out from both sides of the government, from Kyiv and from Moscow, about what this means going forward. For months, we have talked about the expected counteroffensive. Ukrainian officials have touted that things really will start to change come the end of spring as we move into the summer months, which of course is right now. So even though the Ukrainian government says that this was not them, Russia is saying that they will be able to retaliate and that they should be able to retaliate for what they are calling an attempted assassination on Russian President Vladimir Putin. So still a lot of questions around this. But when we're talking about the counteroffensive, something that we have been looking to for months now in terms of what that means, of course, Ukrainian forces say that things will change once they have a lot of the Western aid, when we're talking about tanks coming from different countries, new ammunition, all of these new security measures put in place to reinforce the front line. This, of course, is not that. We're not talking about giving drones that would be pushing towards Russian soil and creating new attacks. But at least from the Ukrainian perspective, every time that we have seen attacks be it on Russian soil or even in Crimea, they quickly say that it was not them, but that Russian forces should probably take more care and more precautions. We'll have to see, Bill, Dana, what statements come out of this as we move forward in the coming days.
Okay. Alex, thank you for that. Just looking at the map here in terms of geography, none of this is verified, by the way, but if you were to launch a drone from inside Ukrainian territory, you'd have to fly some 500 miles to reach Moscow. A drone of that size that we're watching, and we don't have dimensions just yet, but that's a pretty good way. That's a pretty long way to go.
And it was only a couple of months ago that you had a pro-war military blogger who was targeted by assassination with a bomb at a cafe in St. Petersburg, I believe. So there could be things happening also inside the country, possibly internally in the country. We don't know, but we're going to keep an eye on that.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.